Ladies and gentlemen, I think that it is time to start. I would like warmly to welcome everyone at the European Parliament and to introduce this event hosted by myself and my colleague and friend, Paolo De Castro. I would like to greet the Acting Director, Safety of the Food Chain, DG Health and Food Safety, Michael Fluet, and the Ambassador that is not here at this stage, but is coming. I also thank the present colleagues, Myred McGuinness, Paul Rubig, and other colleagues that are here for their presence and for their role in this important initiative. The European Parliament is always open to this event, and I'm very happy to be here with you. I have the privilege to serve as chairman of the ENVI committee, that is one of the bigger committee of the European Parliament. The ENVI committee is responsible for a wide range of policy areas like climate change, air and water pollution, waste management, food security, the protection of biodiversity, to name a few, including public health. The aim of today's conference is to present an open debate on the implementation of sustainable diets across Europe, moving towards a new wide sustainable food system policy. The sustainable diets, good for you, good for the environment, and the link between the food and the environment. Moreover, in this context, I will talk about the initiative in the member state and at the EU level, and also discuss with you about the challenges we are facing when developing these strategies. Food is essential to life. It also forms an important part of our cultural identity and plays an important role in the economy. People are aware that the food they eat is an important factor affecting their health. But what is less well known is the impact that producing and consuming food has on the world's resources. Alongside the cars we drive and the energy we use to heat our houses, the food we produce and consume has a significant impact on the environment through, for example, greenhouse gas emission, the use of land and water resources, pollution, depletion of phosphorus, and the impact of chemical products such as herbicides and pesticides. Prominent scientists, policymakers, and practitioners write extensively on the linkage between agriculture, health, the environment, and food industry. Certainly, a healthy diet is also better for the environment and therefore more sustainable. The United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization defines sustainable diets as those diets with low environmental impact, which contribute to food and nutrition security and to healthy life for present and future generations. Sustainable diets are protective and respectful of biodiversity and ecosystems, culturally acceptable, accessible, economically fair and affordable, nutritionally adequate, safe and healthy, while optimizing natural and human resources. As you know, the global population is projected to increase to nearly 8 billion by 2030 and more than 9 billion by 2050, with an ever faster growing middle class, creating demand for more varied, high-quality diet requiring additional resources to produce. At the same time, a significant share of the world population is suffering from undernutrition or malnutrition. Today, in fact, close to 1 billion people suffer from hunger, while even more are overweight or obese. At both ends of the spectrum, there is a high prevalence of micronutrient malnutrition, as individuals are not deriving sufficient nutrition for their diets. In addition, the alarming of biodiversity loss and ecosystem degradation and their negative impact on poverty and health makes a compelling case for re-examining food system and diets. In fact, about this topic, last month I tabled with other colleagues and Paolo a written declaration on food waste to attract attention to this issue and to ask for a European Year of Food Waste. According to a roadmap, the European Commission was to consider ways to lower the environmental impact of food production and consumption patterns via communication on sustainable food in 2013. The Europe 2020 strategy, the EU's 10 years growth strategy to overcome the crisis and address the shortcoming of the growth model. The strategy supports the shift to a low-carbon, resource-efficient economy for sustainable growth with its flagship initiative for a resource-efficient Europe, finds new ways to reduce inputs, minimize waste, improve management of resource stocks, change consumption patterns, optimize production processes, management and business methods, and improve logistics with important effect on the environment. I think it would be interesting to use the unique position of members of the European Parliament as opinion leaders to raise awareness on the benefit of sustainable dates, and in Europe and at the national level. As an Italian, allow me to mention the Mediterranean diet, that an example of proper nutrition not very impactful to the environment. Finally, I'm here to assure you that the European Parliament intends to play an important role in this regard, and the ENVI Committee will be at the forefront of all food and environment-related files. In this respect, we intend to continue to play a key role vis-à-vis our institutional counterparts, Commission and Council. I expect that ENVI will have, as we did in the past, a close and fruitful cooperation with all the actors involved in these very important topics for the EU and mostly for our citizens. I close here my initial statement, and I give immediately the floor to our colleagues, Mr. Paul Rubig, Chair of the Science and Technology Option Assessment, that we mention usually as STOA, for his initial speech. Please.
Many, many thanks to Giovanni Lavia. It's always good to work together because for us as a scientific committee, to say so, it's very important to have a holistic view on the agenda, which is going through 20 committees in European Parliament. And we are responsible for scientific foresight. And so it's very clear that we use a lot of external experts to help us to get the right options for the committees, and it's our big success that we can produce foresight, and 2050 is at least the area where our next generation has to live. So it's clear to see what can we do up till 2050. Now we are 7 billion people in this world. 2050 we will be 10 billion people. So what does it mean? STOA has found at least 5 megatrends where we have to be more active in the framework. Number one is the so-called eco-efficient energy and transport future. I always say mobility plays a key role for people. So mobility of goods, mobility of people, mobility of ideas, mobility of bytes and bits and kilowatts. So it's a very clear message that mobility plays a very important role, and how we can get the right framework. Second point is sustainable management of natural resources. It's food, it's feed, it's water, it's raw material, a lot of questions which are very clearly found how to get sustainable management for 10 billion people. Developments in ICT technologies. If you see that on your mobile, you can count the calories, the steps which you have done, the heart rate, and I don't know what else you can get now in a very quantitative way. And it's very clear that ICT technologies will play a very important role, and if you put in what you eat every day, you can come to a new way of lifestyle, and I think that's where we are looking for, because the fourth area is further prospects in healthcare and new technologies in life science. We call it perfect life. So looking to 2050, what could keep us healthy, and what means to have a so kind model of perfect life. At least we have to see how we can get as number 5 the worldwide science together, and the European Parliament plays here a very important role. I always say we are not only a legislative body, at least we are kind of postgraduate university because we are every day confronted with new kind of knowledge, so mapping knowledge, looking into new learning and teaching technologies, new apps which are developed in this way will play a very important role. So sustainable food is something where we have to take more attention on it. Security of supply of food will play an important role. The health issue, the safety issue, more and more the affordability for the poor people, that they can get the right kind of nutrition, the quality of the food, environmental sustainability, water, soil quality, CO2 production, a lot of questions which are coming up in this area, and at least also what Giovanni said, a reduction of waste in the food industry, the so-called cycle system. What can we do to produce a more resource-efficient Europe? We want to have a gain of 20% in resource efficiency. It's very clear that we should look into minimizing pre-harvested losses, improving soil management, precision farming, a lot of issues where we could do more and where the knowledge is necessary because for new and better food products we see that the growing food demand is there, demographic changes. If you see that people get up to 100 years and every 4 years we get 1 year older in average, what does it mean in the changing of consumer demands? Do you need the same nutrition as a small child and a very old person? So we concentrate on the science of the first 1,000 days after production of a child and the last 1,000 days before you leave the world. So these 2 areas are quite important for science, and we want to see that prevent lifestyle-related diseases should be in the focus of the scientific development. So the resource and efficient manufacturing process is minimize the dependency on high-value crops, consume less water and energy and CO2, preserve local balances, high quality and high functionality is in manufacturing production a real must. Integrated and transport supply chains, global food security, if we are negotiating TTIP or the WTO standards, it's very important to see what does it mean for global food security. Connect the globalizing food industry and retail to local food production and demand, get a balance between local production and international distributed food, increase the consumer trust through transparency, at least also traceability and objective information, and generate less losses and waste, and operate in a synergistic way with other sectors of the upcoming bioeconomy. The last big area is enhanced innovation capacity, faster translation of scientific results into industrial implementations. That was the reason why we founded the EIT, the European Institute of Technology in Budapest, which should help us to transform the research results of the Horizon 2020 or Research Program 7 into our education scene. From the kindergarten to the university, they are in a need of getting the newest knowledge out of the science area and utilize scientific advances from other disciplines like nanotechnology, ICT. So also the European Research Council takes care on this important fact. And to conclude, my personal experience and one of the really key issues which I got, I was one day in London and I visited the Sports Museum. And in the Sports Museum they had one part how this different kind of sports, how the nutrition is organized for them to give most of the power and capacity. So it was very clear that a guy riding on a horse to win a match, he had some very small breakfast with some kernels to be as light as possible. And on the other hand, we had these big Japanese guys with 300 kilograms to push out the other. He had to eat 2 huge steaks with mayonnaise and frites for the breakfast, for the lunch, and in the evening to perform with 300 kilograms. And between this, they had all kind of nutrition to give you optimized power. And I think that's one of the key issues for the future, to look for which activity you need, which kind of food and nutrition, and what is the consumption of drinks. So looking into the future is fantastic, and I thank Barilla very much to make it possible to have a meeting like this. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul, to you. And now I give the floor to Madame Barbara Buchner, Barilla Center for Food and Nutrition Advisory Board member, for her presentation. Please.
Thank you very much, and it's a pleasure being here. And again, thank you very much to Barilla and the Barilla Center for Food and Nutrition for organizing this event. It's my honor to be an advisory board member of the BCNF. I do think that over the last years, really, it has contributed to shedding more light and providing more science to some of the questions that were already raised today. So I think I'm really glad that we have a chance here to share some of our findings of our latest policy papers on sustainable diets. And so what I like to do today is basically touch on 3 points. The first is, why do sustainable diets matter? And that relates a little bit already to the introductory remarks we heard. The second, to go a little bit deeper on what constitutes sustainable diets and what the tools that are currently out there, in particular what the Barilla Center for Food and Nutrition has been creating, how they can help in that context. And then the third point is really, how can we foster a broader adoption of sustainable diets across Europe and then hopefully also globally. So just starting on the first point, why do sustainable diets matter? And I think we've heard already, and we all know, that the global food production and consumption models and patterns really have a massive impact on our world. And they're therefore very key cornerstones of a happy and a healthy Europe. And so what we see, and I'd like to use a few figures here just to stress this point, is that they really have an impact on the environment, on the economy, but also on our social systems. Just starting with the economy, if you think that about 300,000 businesses are constituting the European food and drink industry, and they are actually, in terms of employment and turnover, really the largest sector in the European industry, and it shows you the importance this industry plays and the importance the changes in their strategy can have. The second point relates to the environment, and that obviously is an issue very close to my heart. And we can see that food production and consumption contribute between 20 and 30% of all European environmental impacts. And this is really a very high number, and we've heard already about the different parts, the CO2, greenhouse gases, water consumption, land consumption. So it is a very important factor in making sure that we have a sustainable environment and going forward. And that is also related to the fact that actually we are facing alarming signals related to food waste. And we can see here that in Europe, annually, we have about 90 million tons of food that is being wasted. And that also has an implication on, in terms of economic factors. It's about 500 euros per families that are wasted every year just by throwing away food that is perfectly edible. And the third factor is relating really to more the impacts on the social system. We see alarming trends in the context of overweight and obesity rates, particularly related to youth and children in Europe. And we do think that this will have serious implications on the healthcare systems across Europe. And already today, about 7% of Europe's budgets across the European Union are actually being spent on diseases that are related to obesity. So all this shows that sustainable diets that are having a lower environmental impact and that can contribute to food and nutrition security, while also ensuring healthy lives of the present and future generations, really are key cornerstones of any strategy going forward. And so how can we understand what constitutes sustainable diets? And how can we actually understand how to, design a perfect diet going forward? And I do think that in this context, again, the Barilla Center for Food and Nutrition has created some interesting knowledge, and particularly one model that we believe can help guide the adoption of more sustainable diets. And that model is what you can see on this one slide here, the so-called double food and environmental pyramid. This food and environmental pyramid assesses both the nutritional aspects and the environmental impacts of food products. So it does place foods alongside an upright pyramid, a normal pyramid that you can see, which is very well known on the left side, which shows you the nutritional impacts, the health impacts of different types of foods. So on the bottom, you can see foods that, according to health guidelines, are recommended to be used more frequently. And close to that, you can see the revised upside-down pyramid, which actually gives you the environmental impacts that these different types of food have. And here, the impacts are opposite. On the bottom, which is really the corner of the pyramid, you can see foods that have a lower environmental impact. And so we have collected and analyzed a wide variety of data to really understand what are the impacts of consuming and producing different types of foods. And what we see is actually a very interesting and very simple principle. We actually find through our research that foods that should be consumed more frequently according to health guidelines in general are also those that have a lower environmental impact. So in other words, what we see is that human health and environmental protection really are two sides of the same coin. What is good for people is good for the planet. And we do think that this is a very powerful finding that can really help us guide the adoption of more sustainable diets. In this context, just a small word on a specific diet that we've looked into, and that is the Mediterranean diet, where we can see that, again, based on our research, it does not only provide you health benefits, but it also helps you maintain the economic affordability and environmental sustainability in general. Obviously, you do need to look always in specific local context and in specific context of what you said also where you're consuming food and where the food is being produced. But in general, we do think that the Mediterranean diet is a very helpful and very sustainable diet. So let me just close by thinking a little bit more how we can foster a broader adoption of sustainable diets across Europe and hopefully globally. And again, we do think that sustainable diets really are good, both for people and the planet. And therefore, we do call on policymakers to develop ambitious and long-term programs to promote and also spread sustainable diets across Europe. And we do see that as part of the Europe 2020 strategy. And we do hope that it will encompass both the whole supply chain, but also combining regulatory with awareness-raising actions, which we think both have a very important role to play in really pushing sustainable diets on the forefront. So just to conclude with some specific actions that we would like to see and which we encourage action to happen. First, the Barilla Center for Food and Nutrition really calls on the European Commission to ensure that we are following up on the 2013 consultations on on the sustainability of the food system. We do believe that there was a lot of interesting work done, and we really see that as a cornerstone going forward. We also encourage the European Parliament to support its action by raising awareness about the environmental and the economic implications of sustainable diets. And again, we do hope that the work we do here is really providing some additional science and some additional evidence. And finally, we also recommend expanding the 2014 Council conclusions on nutrition and on physical activity to take account of the environmental and economic implications of sustainable diets. So we hope that the research that the Barilla Center for Food and Nutrition is doing is really encouraging policymakers to take environmental considerations into account when developing dietary guidelines. And again, we believe that the work we've done and we hopefully certainly there's much more needed, and we certainly will continue to do that and hope also to collaborate with others that are in the room here. But we hope that the work that is done really provides a powerful business case in the end to move from talk to action. But again, what we see is really that in general, what's good for the planet, it's good for the people, and this is a powerful argument. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now we start with a short movie, and during the movie I ask to the next panelist, Michel Flou, Ambassador Peronaci, and our colleague Sania Azekam to come up on the podium.
The best way to get answers is to start asking the right questions.
Y si los alimentos se distribuyeran más ecuamente en el mundo, tendríamos menos guerras.
How can we achieve economic growth while respecting the planet?
सन 2050 में दुनिया में 9 बिलियन लोग होंगे। क्या हमें लगता है कि हम सबके लिए खाना पीना देने में सक्षम हैं?
A obesidade é uma verdadeira epidemia mundial. Por que ninguém se importa com isso?
Dans de nombreux pays, on continue à acheter de la nourriture. Pourquoi dans mon pays, nous mourrons de faim?
Я намагаюся навчити свого сина робити вибір здорової їжі. Хто може допомогти мені зробити це вірно?
Nonna sta ora in cucina, mamma ha solo qualche minuto. E io? Starò mai in cucina?
Jede 5. Tasche mit Lebensmitteln endet im Müll. Wie können wir endlich verhindern, dass Lebensmittel weggeschmissen werden?
Today, everybody's questions have become ours. The Barilla Center for Food and Nutrition Foundation is a multidisciplinary think tank and research center, and this forum gives us the opportunity to listen, to exchange views, and work together. We are here to turn quality of thinking into quality of life, to understand the roots of our present challenges, to reach out into our future with strong and healthy branches. The 6th International Forum on Food and Nutrition. Let's take action now.
Okay, now we can start with institutional reactions, and I start immediately from the Commission, giving the floor to Mr. Michael Flou, Acting Director of the Safety of the Food Chain on DG Sanco. Please.
Thank you. Thank you for the introduction. I'm from DG Santé, as of first. They've changed the name. Santé, which is now even more pronouncing the word health. Where to start now in 5 minutes to address all these issues? Unfortunately, Mr. Rübig is gone because he made his long list of activities he's carrying out with his committee there. And I just want to make one general remark when we start the discussion here. I'm in my career in the Commission over the last 10 years, I have dealt with quite a number of innovative technologies. I have dealt with genetically modified organisms, food additives, enzymes, pesticides, etc., etc. And I can make one general statement in the opening of this meeting. Innovation is not necessarily perceived together with healthy diet. So this is a big problem here in which I am facing regularly in my work, that translating innovation into healthy diets. So new technologies are perceived quite critical. Barilla refers to the resource efficiency, and this was also said here by various speakers. Resource efficiency, resource efficient Europe. It's about reducing inputs, reducing waste, minimizing waste, change consumption patterns. Under this topic also fits very well the promotion of the Mediterranean diet, optimized production processes, etc., etc. And it's calling upon the Commission to develop an ambitious program to promote and spread sustainable diets throughout the European Union. I just would like to recall that within the EU for many years we have already tried to address many of the aspects which were raised today. We have the strategy for Europe on nutrition, overweight and obesity related health issues, where we have a mix of, on the one side, legislation. We have a very complex legislation in the area of food safety, which is probably one of the strictest in the world. We have also, which covers the whole food chain. We have also a number of soft legislation. We have established high-level groups, EU platforms, where we offer not only governmental experts, policymakers, but also other partners in the food chain to enter into dialogue, to agree on commitments which are about promoting more healthy diet and consumption patterns. I would like to make also one general statement. When I read your paper, you were also recommending, when you recommended to the Commission, you also asked to require member states to develop national policies on sustainable diet with country-specific targets. And the Commission should be in charge of monitoring and measuring the progress in achieving these targets. When I read this, I got a bit stuck by the word require. It sounds a bit like we have to legislate this. And maybe I should now, where we are at the start of a new commission, also to refer to what President Juncker has said about the political guidelines in the area of food safety and health. He said he recognizes that we have in the area of food safety a well-developed policy area with substantial responsibilities assigned to the Commission, to Europe. And he clearly stated that our priorities should be to meet these responsibilities, but also to modify and to simplify legislation. In the area of health, he was more careful. He acknowledged that we have limited responsibilities and that we should respect the rules of subsidiarity and proportionality. So when we now talk about in your recommendation require, I think we have to be cautious that, or we should not, I'm saying this here now without having this further consulted in-house, but we should be very cautious not to raise expectations that we will legislate, that we should immediately legislate in this area. I can give you another example. Sustainability is quite broad. We have legislation in place already at the level of primary production. We have sustainable use of pesticides, where we have precisely these requirements to establish targets and to monitor these targets. We are currently in the process of preparing a report. It is extremely difficult to get member states agreeing on a specific target. This is really, I would say, my first experience with this legislation. It's almost not impossible, but extremely difficult to have a common target throughout Europe. This can only be done at national level. We have, as regards sustainable diet, I mentioned we have this soft legislation, but we have also in our legislation, we try to legislate, and I think we have made huge progress here with the requirements that the consumer has to be informed, the food information to consumers, where labeling provisions, nutrition labeling will enter into force in 2016. So the consumer will be informed about his diet. I think this is on the sustainable diet what I would like to say. It was also mentioned the problem of food waste. You have seen that the Commission has withdrawn its proposal on the circular economy. there were big discussions in the public, but also here with the parliament. But here, President Juncker has announced that he would like to come forward by end of this year with a more ambitious package. The work has started. I'm not in a position to tell you today already more, but there is ambitious. Juncker wants to be more ambitious. In Santé, we have work and we continue working on food waste. We have established a working group on food waste. So food waste is on our agenda. I think the Commission has done a lot. We have the EU 2020 strategy. We are working on sustainability not only at the production sector, primary production, but also in the food processing industry. Sustainable diet is another element here, and across all these sectors, we are also looking, of course, into the food waste issues. And how this more ambitious package will look like, this is premature for me to say anything on this. Yeah. So if you allow me, this would be my opening statement here.
Thank you very much, and we wait for the more ambitious proposal on waste, but it is another table in which we have to discuss it. And now I give immediately the floor to Marco Peronasci, Deputy Permanent Representative of Italy to the European Union. Please.
Thanks a lot to Chairman Lavia and to Chairman Le Castro and to Barilla for inviting me here. And we're really very happy that this event is taking place now. We are just recovering from a rather intensive presidency where issues of foods and sustainability were very high on our agenda. Also because we are all aware of an event that is soon taking place, which is Expo 2015 Milan, which is exactly about the issues that we're talking today. So first of all, we really want to commend Barilla, and this is our first institutional reaction. We think there is a need to open a serious debate on sustainable diets across Europe, and we see that as and you will excuse me the word because we are early in the morning, but as a revolutionary move. And I think that it is very timely that we're doing this here. We have heard from the Commission that, of course, there is a deep reviewing and rethinking about the legislative agenda. We have heard that some of the items to which we attached a lot of importance, such as those concerning the circular economy, the green jobs, are under review. If this is a genuine attempt to be ambitious, we will really support it. We think that maybe it's even right that the Commission takes time to reflect upon these things, and we think that this will give us, all stakeholders, government and private actors, the time to develop a serious reflections on such issues. And this is why I mentioned Expo 2015. Expo 2015 is not a showcase of Italian products. It was never meant to be so. It's going to be an EU-led global event. It's going to give us the opportunity to discuss global issues of nutrition, of food waste, of resource efficiencies, by bringing forward our European experience. And of course we have with the Commission and with the EU institutions a wide experience of setting high standards in such sectors, but also confronting that with the new players that will make the difference, that we will have to take into consideration when reflecting about the different pyramids that will hover on our heads. And so I think that if the Commission is taking time and if that time is used fruitfully, we are sure that with all the contributions coming from these very events, by the end of the year, we will have on the table an ambitious agenda for food and nutrition, which is what we care about. Really, the whole issue of food and nutrition is one tied to the imbalances, the strong imbalances that are there in the environment, are there in the global markets, are there amongst the world population. And these imbalances are increasingly felt as everybody's problem. So clearly social differences make and influences the access to the quantity and quality of food, and by doing so they influence the lifestyle, life expectations of each and every one. So this is to say that we see the problem of food as one coin, or this one face of a coin, on the other side of which there is the problem of waste, the problem of reorganizing the agriculture productions, the problem of seeing how Europe, which is such an important player and whose budget is still very much devoted to agriculture, especially after the new reform of the CAP, can set out a credible strategy for the future. The other point we like to make is that we think that socially there is a strong awareness, a strong call for a debate on food, for a debate on nutrition awareness. I think the point was made that from one side we have malnutrition, from other side we have obesity, and these are vast social phenomena which touch the Western world and which touch the emerging countries, which touch the developing world. It is to say that we consider such an element a base for a global reflection, a global consensus. After all, everybody is concerned about food. Everybody is concerned about how to have a sustainable life. And the attention which we give to issues such as obesity, but also to issues such as the footprint, imprinting of our activities, are really connected to how we're going to cater for a world population which is expanding, and how the resources would be found to ensure that they can have adequate life standards. And this is why, again, I go back to the point, Europe should not lose the opportunity in Milan to engage such a dialogue. This is not just about food. I mean, food is very important, but this is one of the most compelling political issues of the time, and this goes together with the green challenge. So this is why we are very happy, and the first time actually we met with Barilla, which was quite a long time ago, and they presented our idea, and the astonishing Milan Protocol, we and the government fully supported it, and Italy is and will be at the forefront of this battle. Of course, there is also something within our tradition that pushes us to do so. We have been the champion of the Mediterranean diet, which is a central part of a very rich Mediterranean culture, with its heritage, millennia, but with its ever-green relevance and pertinence. And the diet, the Mediterranean diet, is based on respect of the territory, on biodiversity, on biological agriculture, on protection of local small producers, and on cuisine. And this is a culture that permeates all aspects of our lifestyle, and that we think is relevant to the debate we're doing today. Talking and thinking about food, this is my message, is a serious and complex endeavor nowadays. We should move from an individualistic to a holistic approach to consuming and enjoying food. We have to think of a food that not only allows us to survive, but also increases our chances of well-being and good health, which contributes to reducing risk factors of early death and morbidity, foods whose production does not involve ecological risks, harming nature, and of course the problem of production distribution of this food, which should not be carried out at the expense of hunger or scarcity for many others. So you will see in this prism there are many of the issues that we are going to be confronted with. I mentioned that we are, as the Italian government, fully behind this battle. We want to carry this over within the goals of the Millennium Development of the UN, and of course the new ambitious agenda post-2015. We are committed to improving diet standards for better lifestyles, and we think that we need to consider foods in their multiple dimensions: cultural, health, taste, ingredients, production, avoiding, and this is a point that is very important to us, avoiding discriminating actions towards specific foods, ingredients, or nutrients. We also think that we should aim at improving and facilitating the use of technology and information technology everywhere in agriculture. We see agriculture as a way to promote social conditions, to foster youth employment, and to allow more women empowerment and of course to address the basic needs of the most vulnerable. So this is some of the points I wanted to make. Just let me finish by thanking again the organizer. It is a timely debate in Brussels for the reasons I mentioned at first. We think that, of course, streamlining European rules and regulation is a great opportunity to ready Europe for the big challenges ahead of us. At the same time, we have to consider and recognize the challenge of this process and the risk of neglecting relevant proposals to improve European agri-foods markets. And you know the debate about the many proposals that are on the table that should be looked at very seriously. So thanks again for your attention, and have a fruitful deliberation.
Thank you, Ambassador Peronaci. And now I give the floor to Anja Hazekamp, our colleagues, who is a member of a steering group on sustainable food in the European Parliament. Please.
Thank you. Yes, I'm a Dutch MEP from the Party for the Animal, so I will, you probably will know where my focus will be. I'm here as a representative of the EU Food Sense Steering Group, which is a cross-party MEP initiative, and it was initiated by Bart Staes. The EU Food Sense Steering Group is not really new. It was set up in the last legislature by the former Vice President Edward Macmillan Scott, and it is a platform where we MEPs can debate sustainable food issues, and we think it is crucial that the Parliament has such a platform so we can give a clear view on what we think sustainable food system needs. The steering group was also supported by the former European Commissioner, Mr. Potočnik, which spoke at the inaugural meeting of the EU Food Sense Group on the 3rd of December 2013. We hope that the new commissioner will be as ambitious as the former one. And one of the recent activities of the EU Food Sense Group was to send letters to the European Commission and ask them about their communication on building a sustainable food system in Europe. This was originally due to be published in 2013 and delayed ever since. And we hope that, well, first of all, that we get a response from the Commission on our letters, which were co-signed by 62 MEPs, again, cross-party from left to the right. And we hope that they will address the concerns that need to provide the public with accurate and accessible information on food. And I must say, I'm not really, well, I'm seriously worried because we think that there are a lot of attempts to water down this publication. I welcome this breakfast meeting of the Barilla Institute because it emphasizes also that sustainable food is not just about food waste and not about food labeling, but there are a lot of issues concerning to our food. For instance, production methods, production standards, and also the consumption. I think it has a lot to do with diets. And speaking of that, 7 years ago, we, in the Netherlands, we published a book and a documentary called Meet the Future. And of Meet the Truth, sorry. Meet the Truth was a documentary which told us about the impact of certain aspects of our food on the environment, on climate change, global warming. And what we saw that it was underestimated what the impact of animal-based products was. And I will tell you I give you some numbers. A third of the global biodiversity loss is caused by the livestock industry. 1/3 of the global biodiversity loss. And the same goes for greenhouse gases. Between 14 and 18% of the release of greenhouse gases is caused by the livestock industry. And talking about food waste, 36% of all crops are wasted for human consumption because we give them to our animals. 36% of our food. And we heard a lot of, I think we'll hear a lot about legislation and cost, that it's difficult to change something and that it's difficult to improve and get a really sustainable food system. I think it's more easy than that. When we look at the current situation, we see that almost half of the European budget is spent on promoting agriculture and fisheries. And when you look closely to that budget, you see that most of that money, the majority of that budget, goes to animal products, promoting meat, dairy products, promoting fish. And I think that's, well, that's not the way to promote sustainable food in a broader sense. I think when you look at products with a huge impact on the environment, with a huge impact on human health, we should not stimulate those products, but try to prevent these products. And I think a second thing we should do is stop promoting growth. I know it's kind of new here in this house, but growth is an illusion. When you look at our planet, we have only one planet, and we have to take care of that. And if you promote growth, well, we are using more of this planet as we should at this moment, then something in the end will go really, really wrong. For those of you who are interested in more numbers on the impact of the animal-based products and parts of our diet, we have a new book which is called Meet the Future. And we will also give a European release of this book within the next few months. And I hope a lot of MEPs who are here today will join the EU Food Sense group, because we really need to show the people of Europe, but also the European Commission, that it's really important to do something to work on a sustainable food system, because it's good for you, it's good for the environment, and it's also good for the animals. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now I give the floor to Mr. Duncan Williamson from the WWF for Nature, Senior Food Policy Advisor, for listening the experience of a civil society.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the introduction and for having me here, and for so many of you for turning up to a breakfast meeting. I'm coming here representing civil society, and WWF, the world's biggest conservation organisation, we do have millions of members. And for us, food is a massively important issue, and every time we talk about food, our members respond to food. For them, they care about it. It's really, really important for them. Hour this year has a food theme as part of it. And that goes beyond our usual role of saving the orangutan and the panda. Food is what people are interested in, they care about it, they touch on their everyday life. But it's not just the environmental NGOs that think about this. In the United Kingdom, for example, there's an organisation called Eating Better, which works on sustainable diets. That has 42 NGOs as members. Probably about 7 or 8 million people in the United Kingdom are represented by this group. And that's health NGOs, development NGOs, environment NGOs, welfare NGOs. This really is a topic that people care about and they want work done on it. So I'm going to talk about sort of where we are and where we think we could be going. But first of all, I want to pick up on something. I work with nutritionists. I spend a lot of time with nutritionists. And I've been told off for making a mistake that's been made twice today. 2 people have said, a healthy diet is sustainable. If I let that slide, I'll be told off by the nutritionist when I get home. So it's actually, a healthy diet can be sustainable. A healthy diet can also be really, really unsustainable. It's like a sustainable diet, or sustainable food can be unhealthy and it can be healthy. So we need to get that right. A sustainable diet and a healthy diet can be the same thing. They should be the same thing, but they won't always be the same thing. But this whole area of food systems and sustainable diets, when we started working on this 5 years ago, we might have had about 10% of these people in this room. Industry ignored it, MEPs ignored it, politicians ignored it. But look at the room now. And industry is clear. We work with industry. I can think of Sodexo, Outpro, others. They've all said clear, we need to look at sustainable food. We need to start thinking about sustainable food. We need a clear government and European steer on sustainable food. We need a level playing field so we can all start at the same level for this. Industry is very, very clear on it. We've got people like Kellogg's, Food and Drink Federation. They're in here. If they weren't interested in this subject, why would they be here? So I think industry are engaged on it. This is also the year for food, in my opinion. There are some really exciting things that we've touched on that are happening already. We've got the Milan Expo. Wow, that's like from May to October, talking about sustainable food. That is such an opportunity to get this on the agenda, to governments, policymakers, businesses, to really work on it. The Milan Protocol coming out of Barilla. Read it. I mean, I've been on the advisory board for it. It's really good, really good. It's very sensible. It's nothing that radical. It's very sensible. You had the Sustainable Development Goals. Again, I'm fortunate. I'm working on them. I've seen the latest draft of them. And in the Sustainable Development Goals, 5 of them talk about food in some way or other. 5 of them. It's not just the food security and sustainable agriculture one. It covers 5 different areas. This is a massive, massively important area. And then you have Paris 2015, it's climate change. Climate change and food really are interrelated. Last year, the IPCC said we need to change the climate change debate to a food security debate. And at the moment, climate change is all about energy to some. It's not, it's about food as well. Some big reports came out last year that said if we want to keep climate change below 2 degrees C, we have to talk about food and agriculture. They are key to it. More emissions come from the food sector than from forestry. We have to have food in the climate change debate. And the United Kingdom today, our Department of Energy and Climate Change said, put food into the climate change debate. If we really want people to have healthy lifestyles and combat climate change, we have to eat less meat, we have to eat more plants. It's core to it. And this comes from a government in the United Kingdom which is really averse to this kind of message. And it's coming out of our own Department of Energy and Climate Change. So what I would say to the European Commission and to the MEPs in this room and to others is we need a sustainable food system policy. It's not good enough to have everything in different silos. I can think of at least 8 different Commission bodies with responsibility for one bit of food, and they don't talk to each other. That is shocking to me. We need to have a sustainable food system policy. The Commission already works on food, whatever they say. We've mentioned CAP. CAP, that's a food policy. Common Fisheries Policy, that's a food policy in my opinion. There's procurement guidelines, there's TTIP coming up. It goes on and on. They work on food, they tell us what to eat, they advise us what to eat, they put our subsidies, our taxpayers' money into what to eat. So we can't say they don't tell us what to eat. They do. It's there. It's a fact. And they do have a role in this. We live in a single market for products in Europe. When Sweden tried to put sustainability into its own food regulations and food guidelines, they were told by the Commission they can't do that. because we live in a single market. So it seems slightly bonkers that we can't look at this. So I want to be clear, though, that WWF is not expecting a Euro diet. That is not right. Every region is different, every country is different, every culture is different. We're not expecting a Euro diet. But what we do think is there is a really big role for the Commission here. The Commission needs to step up. It needs to bring together best practice. It needs to bring people and experts together. It needs to create a level playing field. It needs to get this dialogue going. It can't keep avoiding this. It started to do it with the food communication. It was getting so close. The food communication was massively consultational. It had lots of support. Lots of DGs supported it. It was going to be published. I saw the final version. It was weak, but it was a great step forward, and it got buried. We don't know why. Industry supported it. Civil society supported it. Politicians supported it. It got buried. We don't know why. And that, for me, is a shame. I would say that's almost anti-democratic. It needs to be looked at. We need to start bringing that back. It was a really good first step in this whole debate, and it had to be there. And as you'll see in your packs, we put a call for action in there to get it published. We think it's massively important to get it published. And this has been signed by Nestlé, Tesco, a variety of other organisations, including the Parliamentary Steering Group on Sustainable Food Systems. So let's publish it. We like it. I want to be very clear, though. Waste is not enough. Just working on food waste will not solve this problem. It's not enough. We have to look at food systems. We have to look at diets. With or without the communication, we need to work on this. We have to work on it. I'd like to know who is responsible for sustainable food within the Commission. And the final message I'll leave you is that the planet needs it, people want it, industry is behind it, so the Commission must show leadership. Thank you.
Thank you. And now I give the floor to Mr. Luca Virginio, Vice President, Barilla Center for Food and Nutrition, for the panel discussion.
Thank you, Chairman, and thanks to everybody for such a rich discussion and also for such a rich participation. I will be very short, time is running. So before giving the floor to you, okay, for questions that you have to all the speakers, I just want to highlight a couple of facts, okay? The first is, Milan Expo has been mentioned many times. Also the Milan Protocol, the foundation proposed already a couple of years ago. So we are so excited that recently the Italian government decided to launch a great initiative open to everybody, which is called the Milan Charter. And I invite you all, if I may, Mr. Ambassador, okay, to follow, the work led by the Italian government on the Milan Charter, because, our wish is that, the Milan Charter will bring together most of the issues about food and nutrition. So that will be a great opportunity, in our opinion, to address the issues, including sustainable diets, that we are talking today. The second point I want to make is that despite all the efforts, despite all the works, despite the dozen of conferences, breakfast meetings that we run every day on food and nutrition, unfortunately, data tell us that, the issues there, and is getting even worse day by day. I'm sorry, but I have to remind one data. While we have almost 1 billion people with no access to food yet in the 21st century, we have almost twice people, 1.5 billion, who are overweight or obese. Okay? So out of the 1.5 billion overweight or obese, almost 30 million people die every year because they eat too much food or too bad food. Okay? So, and 1/3 of the deaths related to cancer are food-related cancer deaths. So I think that we have a question in front of us that we have to address. Okay? So with that being said, I think that before Ms. Barbara Buchner, the member of the advisory board, will explain what the double pyramid is all about. And here again, so industry, in this case the Barilla Foundation, we don't want to call on the European institution, especially the European Commission, to fix all the problem. We don't think that these issues will be fixed by regulation or legislation, not at all, because each of us, can help to fix the problem. Because every day when we decide what to eat and how to behave, we make a great contribution and a great difference. And that was the sense of the double pyramid. Because the message of the double pyramid was very simple. All the food are very good. There is no bad food. There is no bad food at all, but there are food, and this is not Barilla Center Foundation that say that. These are all the scientists. Wherever you go, you ask a scientist. I'm not a scientist, but I ask many scientists, and wherever you go, they tell you something. There are foods that you have to eat more frequently, and foods that you have to eat less frequently. And if you do that, God blessing, I'm sorry, I'm Catholic, probably you will be living longer and better. And again, these are the scientists that say that, the planet will benefit. Because once again, whoever has done this wonderful planet did the things perfectly. Because the food which is better for Duncan or Chairman De Castro and myself is also better for the planet, because it has the lowest environmental impact from an ecological footprint point of view. So it's simple as that. So the point, in my opinion, what we have to do as industry and European institutions, starting from the European Commission and the Parliament, which is the voice of the European citizen, I think that we have to make sure that people knows what we are talking about. Because the people, they don't know anything. So the first thing, even more important, I know that I'm saying something which is strange, than having regulation is communication, information, education. That's the key role of the industry, and that's the key role of the European institution. If people know the story, they will start to behave properly, okay? Then, if we need the legislation, okay, let's save the legislation. I'm sorry for keeping talking. I'm very passionate, as you can imagine, about that. And with that said, I want to open the floor because we have such great speakers. And so if there are questions or if there are other interventions, I see already Anna Maria Corazza-Bildt. Okay, so with that said, I give the floor immediately to Anna Maria Corazza-Bildt, and then there is another intervention.
Yes, ciao, buongiorno a tutti. For the first, I can never lose a Barilla event because it's always good and interesting, and we need it. My name is Anna Maria Corazza-Bildt, and I'm a member of the European Parliament in my second mandate. I'm the first Vice Chairman of the Internal Market and Consumer Protection Committee, where we have done work together with Paolo and Giovanni 2010 on the report where I was in charge for the Consumer Committee on food waste. And by the way, I'm also in the steering group, and I've been co-signing this letter, which would get a very lousy answer by the Commission. And I want, of course, to sing with the angels here, and not only because I come from Parma, but because it is a communication by the Commission on sustainable food. And by the way, I understand now also the life cycle communication, package is not going to be presented, was blocked already the previous mandate. We had meetings in this Parliament where we said very clearly that we wanted to have it. We had public debates. We had the debates with, actually, so Barilla, you made a great job on food waste as well. And it's obvious that sustainable diet and food waste goes together. And the life cycle package was intended to be presented together with the sustainable food because they go together. So still we have not got from the Commission sufficient explanation, and anyway, we will continue to push because as much as we have been pushing for a more rational way of working in the Commission that we can do less to take away just the issue that have to do with feeding the world, the year of the Expo, which has as title Feeding the World, we should actually strengthen our work related to what the Expo is the theme of the Expo. And it's of course a theme that has to do with using better the resources that we have, about health, and it's of course about consumer choice also. The last thing I would like to say, the risk is also, as we saw what my colleague already said, that it's kidnapped by ideology. I want to work on this also from a consumer perspective. It's about enhancing free choice and empower consumers to make free choice about their diet. It's not going to impose to the people of Europe that they're not going to eat meat, or they're going to eat this, or not eat that. So I think that what you say in your recommendation, that we're not only legislators, but we're also opinion builders. We had started this work, and I really think we should continue together to put pressure on the Commission to put it back on the table. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciated. There is an intervention over there. If you
Thank
can
you.
introduce yourself.
I'm Emile Frison. I'm with the Daniel and Nina Carasso Foundation, who is supporting sustainable diets as the main topic of its interventions. I'm also the former Director General of Biodiversity International, who with FAO gave the definition of sustainable diets that was cited by Mr. Lavia at the beginning. So we've been working on sustainable diets for a long time, and I'm very pleased to see that the Italian government has taken the initiative of having Milan Expo 2015 dedicating exactly to that topic. I think there is a need for much greater integration, as many people have said already. There are still too many contradicting policies by different sectors, and I think we can't repeat it enough that there needs to be more integrated thinking, and at the level of the Commission, at the level of ministries, at the national level, and more locally. I think the initiatives that are taken by the Barilla Foundation is very important, but I also want to repeat what Duncan said about not be tempted by too much simplification, that sustainable diet is not necessarily healthy and vice versa. I think there is a danger in oversimplification, and there is still a need to invest also in education, as has been mentioned, and I hope that this will be an important part of the efforts. Thank you.
Thank you very much. There is a lady over there. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you. Good morning. Marta Messa from Slow Food. I just had a question in terms of the data that were mentioned today, and that is, according to the UN, we are currently producing enough food for 12 billion people, which is nearly twice as much as the food we need for the current population today, and is about a third more than the food we will need if we reach the peak of 9 billion people in 2050. So my question is this data being taken into account also as an explanation of the fact that we have an overproduction of food, valued very little across the whole chain, and that would be also an explanation for many of the dynamics we were discussing today.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I suggest that the speakers eventually takes note, and eventually afterwards there are short reply, okay? Because there are many interventions. There is a lady here, please. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Sarah Geschonke. I represent Edeka. Edeka is a cooperative of 4,000 independent food retailers in Germany, and our annual turnover was 45 billion euros. So this makes us the leading food retailer in Germany. As some of you might know, our claim is that we have a passion for food. And well, this morning I have one comment and one question to you. As we do have a passion for food, obviously we welcome any initiative supporting healthy and sustainable diets. So thank you very much for this great event. And then I would like to make an addition to what Duncan said, because it's always the food producers that I mentioned, but I want to emphasize that also food retailers have a big role to play in this issue, as we represent the direct link to consumers. And then secondly, I want to mention that the very old-fashioned, very distinction between food producing and food retailing companies does not hold true anymore, because very many modern food retailers such as Edeka, they also they're vertically integrated. So what do I want to say with this? Food retailers such as Edeka, we also have our own slaughterhouses and our own agricultural product companies. Well, okay, I want to come to my question now. I welcome the approach of raising awareness about healthy and sustainable foods, but the main challenge, I think, is how do we get consumers to be willing to pay more for high-quality foods? Okay. As many research studies have shown, it's still the price that is the main driver for purchase decisions. Okay. So what can we do? Like, how do we get a turnaround from awareness of affordability and price issues to, okay, I actually want to buy healthy food because it's good for me, it's good for the planet?
Okay.
Yeah, thank you very
The
much.
question is very clear. Sorry, but we are very short of time. So the next, we have time only for 2 questions. Be very short, please, and concise. Sorry for that. Go ahead.
Thank you very much. My name is Raquel Izquierdo. I represent Freshfel Europe. It's the Fresh Fruit and Vegetable Association. So you are going to guess immediately what's my point. My point is fruit and vegetables are the only food category that has no upper limits in terms of consumption. You can eat as many as you want. There is plenty of scientific evidence on the health effects of eating fruit and vegetables, obesity, but also other chronic diseases. However, what we see in Europe is that consumption keeps stagnating or even going down. So my plea to you, because our sector is very fragmented, because economic resources are very limited, we need the help of the European institutions and all the stakeholders to communicate very clear on this. Thank you.
Thank you. Very clear. There is a last question. Sorry for that. At the end of the room. Yes, sir.
Good morning. My name is Pierre Sultana. I'm representing 4POS, an animal welfare organization. First of all, congratulations to the organizers and to the hosts to make this possible today, to make this discussion possible. Until Madame Hazekamp took the floor, I can only show that one thing was absent. It was the discussion about animal welfare. And because animal welfare can also have a very positive impact on sustainable food. Just think about the diminution of livestock transport. And the second thing I would like to add is that I think the Parliament has to stay very unified on this theme, on this subject, and therefore I would like to call the host and the MEPs here today to continue to support one of the richness of the Parliament, so this steering group on sustainable food. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The point was very clear, and for a short reaction, unless I would like to have the representative of the European Commission and eventually WWF to make a short reply, unless other speakers want to make a short. Yeah. Okay. Please be very short. Thanks. Thank you.
I promised to be very short. Yeah. So I think we had points on which we disagreed, but there were also quite a lot of points where I think work is ongoing, and with work is ongoing in the direction which was also expressed here. I have noted the plea to the Commission to come forward with our communication raised by several participants here on the podium, but also in the audience. This I will bring home to my house. And also in particular in view of what Mrs. Gorzavel said, in view of the Expo, the importance to have this communication. This is what I can say here at the end of the meeting from my side. Thank you.
Thanks. Please.
Yes, thank you. I like the suggestion for a more integrated approach, and I would like to combine 2 questions made, one by Elka and one by 4POS. It's not the case that high quality food is too expensive and that we have to explain to people why they have to pay more for a good product. The case is that low quality food is too cheap. And I think when you look at the European subsidies for instance, mass-produced chicken, which is not a lot of nutritional value, has a high environmental impact, and we see that the European Union sponsors commercials to eat more chicken. I think when we get rid of these agricultural subsidies for promoting low quality food with a high environmental impact, we can turn things around, and then the difference between high quality food and less quality food will be much smaller, and I think even high quality food will be more cheap. And the same for animal welfare. Of course, animal welfare is something which only a few people really mention every time. Doesn't mean that when you look at the production, you see the long distance live animal transport, you see also that we need to get to a more local, regional, or more local food production system without these transports.
Thank you very much. And the final remark is for Duncan Williamson, WWF.
Okay, thank you. Very quickly, I'm going to touch on the same 2 points: overproduction and consumers not willing to pay the true cost of food. Very quickly, we overproduce food because it's massively subsidised. We don't pay the true cost of food. People already pay a lot more for their food than we recognise. Healthcare costs in the United Kingdom related to diet-related ill health last year, all societorial costs was £22 billion, so about 30 billion euros. So I'm paying that out of my taxpayers' money. I pay subsidies. For subsidies, I don't particularly want to put money into subsidies. So people are already paying their money, but it's hidden. We're not told how it's spent. That's not including the cost of loss of ecosystem services from the current food system. So I think when we start looking to the true cost accounting of food, we will change the food system, and that has to happen at some stage because it's our money as taxpayers. And I genuinely think, just so you know, I have a 9-week-old daughter, and I expect that in 35 years' time, she's going to go, your generation, your parents' generation, what were you thinking? Wasting food like that, treating food like that, and overproducing food like that, because they're not going to be able to afford to if we carry on like this.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Duncan. And Mr. Chairman, over to you.
From my point of view, I have only to answer to Freshfield. As you remember, during the last reform of the CRP, we strongly fight for having a more ambitious program for fruit and vegetable in the school, and we achieve a good result in that direction. And now I give the floor to my colleagues and friend Paolo De Castro for the closing remarks of this very interesting meeting.
Thank you, Giovanni. Thank you, everybody. I don't have to add more things because I think Luca Virginio has already said what is the main goal of this breakfast meeting. First of all, eat less, eat better. I think this is the slogan we have to analyze. It's not a question of discrimination of food, but it's a question to how increase the knowledge, how increase education. Giovanni mentioned the fruit and milk in the school scheme that we are trying to modify in the European Parliament work in a real educational program, because the thing is how we can improve the knowledge, how we can improve the awareness. We already said many times that we don't have enough natural resources to feed the world. And the world is increasing in tremendous increasing of demand because of the diet. So the question is, how we can give the right answer to this big question, how to produce, but at the same time to give the sustainable way of production, because we don't have enough land, enough water, and people don't know all of this subject. And I very much hope that the Expo 2015 will be a great opportunity to make more knowledge about the big challenge in the world. And as European Parliament, we are working in a resolution in this direction, and we very much think that just before the starting of Expo 2015, we will have a chance to have all the plenary debate about these important topics. The problems are a lot. We said about food waste, we said about how we can take care about the sustainability in agriculture, but at the same time we have to realize that the problem for us is to understand more, to know people, to know that the everyday reaction, as Luca said, everyday behavior can give an important answer to this question. So I would like to say thanks to all of you, in particular the colleagues Anna Maria and friends Zullo and Massimo Paolucci and the other friends that was today, but they left. And I very much thanks Barilla Foundation, because this is an important topic for all of us. Thank you and good day.